Can you hear me okay? Okay, I apologize for my very British accent. What is Fediverse? I'm not going to talk about Fediverse-specific things. I think it is honestly a question of semantics as to whether matrix or email count as being part of the Fediverse or not. But I'm going to talk about matrix. Who actually knows what matrix is already? Okay, reasonable number of people. So matrix is all about decentralized communication. It's an open network that anybody can use for secure, end-to-end encrypted, real-time comms. So we're not really talking social networking here. We're talking instant messaging, we're talking VoIP, we're talking IoT. We could even do stuff in VR and AR on top of it. The whole point of matrix is that we want to build the real-time communication layer of the open web, full stop. So just as ActivityPub goes and focuses on the, I guess, the social fabric of the web and microblogging, we're looking at relatively low latency, real-time interchange of data. Basically, a pub-sub fabric that is decentralized across the internet. Pardon me. The whole point of this is that no single party should ever be able to own or control your conversations. You should never be able to have a Facebook or a Google which ends up sitting at the center of a big web of surveillance capitalism. Your conversations should be replicated equally over all participants. And this is not kind of an optional nice to have. If you have two people on two different servers talking to one another, they must absolutely intrinsically equally share the conversation with each other, a multilateral relationship, if you will. So this isn't just federated, where different servers get run by different people and they talk to one another. It is decentralized, or at least the conversations are decentralized. So quick history. The team who built Matrix have been together since about 2003. We started off building stuff around the phone network. In 2010, we got acquired by Amdocs, an Israeli telecoms vendor, and after working there on the phone network for a few years, we came to the conclusion that we should burn the phone network to the ground. Let us replace the PSTN with something built on the internet. In 2014, 10 years ago, almost to the day, we launched Matrix as this protocol that came out of many years of building out SIP and XMPP and SS7 and ISDN and all sorts of other telecom standards, with really the intention, as we say, to be this missing communication layer. Now, because Matrix works by replicating data over all of the participating servers, so if you have, I don't know, 3 servers with users in a conversation, that room, like Git, is covered over all of them. We found it critical to have end-to-end encryption by default, because otherwise you end up with, I don't know, 10,000 servers on a big room, and that data just gets smeared everywhere. So we want to protect the data from the servers behaving badly or getting compromised. Then in 2016, we launched Element as an initial kind of flagship app for Matrix, because we had seen that previous attempts at decentralized communication, and indeed decentralized social networks, had effectively failed because there wasn't a killer app. Let's face it, before Mastodon came along for ActivityPub, there wasn't very much happening there. And so Element was us very deliberately trying to create at least a sort of proof art of the possible to get people using this as a mainstream client. We then, the team who created Matrix then set up Element as a for-profit company in 2017, really to fund us to keep working on Matrix. And then in 2018 and 19, we first of all got out of beta, released Matrix 1.0, and we set up the matrix.org Foundation as a non-profit in order to support and own the standard and the spec on behalf of the whole ecosystem. 2020, we actually finally turned on end-to-end encryption by default, and fast forward to the current day, we are in the final throes of Matrix 2.0, which I will talk all about in a few minutes, and also Element X, which is the next generation version of Element that builds on top of the Matrix 2.0 set of APIs. So in terms of how big is Matrix, here is the total known Matrix accounts. And you can see over the last, 6 years or so, how we've gone from a couple of million all the way up to about 142 million total accounts. Now, this is the absolute maximum number you can imagine here. This includes guest users, it includes bridged users who are using it via Slack or Discord or Telegram or IRC. Probably a better metric is to look at MAU. So previous talk spoke a lot about MAU in ActivityPub. Here's the equivalent one for Matrix. Now this is based on the phone home stats that Synapse, the kind of original Matrix server, reports back to the Matrix Foundation if you have it turned on. So it's going to be an understeer because the majority of people who use Matrix don't really like phoning home stats. And we know that there are some very big servers and deployments out there which just don't talk back to us. But of the ones which do, you can see that we've gone from about 1 million MAU in 2020 through to hovering around 4.5 million MAU on the visible network right now. And that is also on the public federation, as opposed to the very many private federations that we see as well. So it's about, I don't know, 5 times-ish bigger, at least, than what we see on the ActivityPub side of things. Although, as I said, we do very different things for different purposes. A rather amusing stat is that Stack Overflow last year asked people what their most desired and their most admired communication tool is, and we were highly amused to see that Matrix, probably Element in this instance, being the most admired communication tool, even more admired than Discord. However, in terms of actual desired, well, we're kind of in the middle of the ranking there. So, it was interesting to hear that ActivityPub is getting such traction on the government side of things, because what we have seen on Matrix is that we have massive sort of product market fit, for want of a better description, in 2 places: open source projects and government. Open source projects like us, because we are an open source project and we embody this concept of the open web. Governments like us, because we provide digital sovereignty. We let them run their own communication on their own terms with end-to-end encryption, and they do not have to be dependent on Microsoft or Cisco or whoever your favorite big tech company might be. So at the moment, all of the money, or the majority of the sort of money in the Matrix ecosystem is coming from people like the Bundeswehr, the German military, or CHAP, the French state, or the schools in North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany, and many, many other organizations. We just announced last week that the United Nations is rolling out Matrix as a replacement to email, as a secure way to communicate. NATO uses it as a replacement to Signal and WhatsApp for communication. We have folks in the DoD and elsewhere in the US using it. The Ukraine MOD, wherever they've gone, use it as a sort of, again, a Signal or WhatsApp replacement. So there is a lot of activity happening there. We have funding challenges, to say the least, and one of our interesting challenges is how we manage to route money from governments through to actually developing the core project, or indeed clients like Element. You can see some of these guys, like the Germans, go and contribute significantly, others not so much. So one of the things that we've done on the Matrix Foundation side is to offer the ability for people to join the foundation in order to control and govern how it evolves. Originally, it was basically me as project founder and sort of project lead with my co-founder going and saying how it all works. I have no desire to be a benign dictator for life, and so we are democratizing out how Matrix evolves. And in fact, we have our very first governing board elections happening on May the 18th. And the way it works is that people basically can pay as organizations to be members or individuals, and then they get to vote and help control how the protocol works. So technically, it looks like this. It's just a mesh of servers, and clients connect through to their respective servers. However, we also have the concept of application services, and this is where you bolt on things like bridges to other platforms. So if you want to bridge to IRC or to, I don't know, XMPP or whatever, then you might go and use a bridge or build a bridge to connect through to other technologies. There are about 120 different bridges now, even through to ActivityPub and all sorts of different environments. And the idea is that Matrix can sort of be used as a glue to connect these environments together. Kind of interesting is that we just built an official one for WhatsApp. So Meta's interest in federation in this instance is more courtesy of the European Commission and the Digital Markets Act, who have mandated that they have to provide open APIs, which we promptly implemented a bridge against, including end-to-end encryption that can link WhatsApp users through to the rest of Matrix, although we're in the process of negotiating with them on how we actually and if we actually turn that on. Here's a more interesting diagram, perhaps, showing how a government typically deploys Matrix. So on the right-hand side, you have the internet, and then on the left-hand side, you have a government. So this could be France or Germany or somebody. All of the blue dots would be probably ministries, perhaps, or they might even be finer granular servers. So in some instances, we see people deploy Matrix servers on a per vehicle or a vessel kind of granularity. So imagine that you have a navy of ships and they all want to communicate together, but they also need to be able to communicate internally if they're not connected to the other ones. This is a kind of sweet spot for Matrix where you can have this very aggressively decentralized communication. We also have things like hardware appliances that connect through air gaps. So if you have a secret squirrel network and you want to talk to your normal network, then we have hardware devices to link the two together. There are also border gateways that act a bit like email firewalls, application layer gateways that isolate your network from the wider universe. So this is not the right slide. That's the right slide. So this is a diagram of how Matrix looks, or at least a subset of it today. So you've got the Matrix spec itself, and this is kind of the holy of holies. It is defining a whole bunch of Markdown and open API that says how the clients talk to the servers. Then on the server side, you have the first generation server called Synapse. There is a new one called Dendrite. And then on the right-hand side, we have many, many community projects like Conduit, which is a Rust server, eJabberdy, the Erlang XMPP server just added Matrix. You have Polyjuice and Elixir, Construct and C++, and many others. And then you also have bots and bridges written by the core team. And green stuff here is owned by the foundation. Originally, Element donated Synapse to the foundation, but at the end of last year, we continued the development of it as Element because, frankly, we didn't have the funds to keep donating it to the foundation. And then on the client side, we are in transition. We started off with the first-gen client SDKs for web, iOS, and Android written in TypeScript, Objective-C and Swift, and Kotlin. And then we had Element Android, iOS, and web as kind of this sample application sitting on top. Right now, we're in the middle of transitioning to Rust SDK, where almost all of the heavy lifting gets done in a single, very performant, sort of third-generation Matrix SDK, which is then shared between Android and iOS, and in future, also Element Web. And everything here is natively in Rust. So this is the shape of things to come, where you have a first-class native user interface, which is pretty thin, and then all of the heavy lifting is done here. Meanwhile, in the rest of the community, there are hundreds of Matrix clients. If you want to use Mozilla Thunderbird as a Matrix client, it now has Matrix built in. If you want to have a native GTK app, then Fractal is really, really good, and they've just shifted to using Rust SDK as well. NeoChat is the C++ code base from the KDE project. If you want a first-class native one for your Apple Watch, then watch the Matrix. If you want a command line one, use GoMux. If you want one that looks like Telegram, written in Qt and C++, use Neko, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of exciting that we have many, many, many completely independent implementations, both from the team who built it in the first place and then the wider internet and ecosystem. So quickly, here's the science bit. In Matrix, you're basically building up directed acyclic graphs of messages, very similar to Git repositories, but for real-time comms. And I will quickly show you what that looks like in practice. If Alice sends a message, you can see it's an HTTP post saying hello to a URL on her server. That server signs it and bakes it into its copy of the room. It then goes and pushes it out to both of the other servers participating, and it's a bit of an ugly HTTP call with a sort of special auth header. Then those servers store it, and then it will get sucked out to Bob and Charlie on their respective clients simply by doing a long-lived GET request. So matrix is as simple and stupid as it gets. I want to send a message, HTTP put. I want to receive a message, HTTP get/sync. The get blocks until something happens, then you receive the message. And that's all it is. If, say, Bob sends a message, you can see that his copy of the room on his server has started to diverge from the other two. And say that Charlie also responds at the same time, then at this point, the 3 rooms are out of sync. Oh no, what are we going to do? Well, the magic of decentralization is that Bob will push out his message through to the other 2, and you can see that we end up with this split in the room history. And then Charlie's server will also push out his message to the other 2, at which point we're all back in sync again. And if Alice, say, sends another message later, it points to the previous 2 messages logically, and everybody ends up in the same position in this architecture, basically. So all it is a way of replicating these messages across the participating servers. Now, the really exciting bit, if you're into decentralization geekery, is the fact that we accidentally invented or discovered a new form of decentralized access control here. Because as you can see, there is no single point who controls who can do what and who can talk to who. There is no blockchain, there is no kind of global data structure here. Everybody has their own version. And we did a very pragmatic engineering approach, which is to say that every time something happens, you have to prove why. So if, I don't know, Bob joins the room, it will say, well, I can join the room because I was invited. And the join rules of the room say that somebody had permission, who was Alice, who created the room in order to join me. So every time a server does something, it proves why they think they can do it. Everybody else executes the proof and says, well, yeah, Matthew can join the room, or Bob can join the room. If Bob goes and suddenly tries to join an invite-only room and claims that Alice invited him when there was not an actual invite, then everybody would say, hang on a second, Bob is an evil actor. We're just going to ignore him from now on and not trust him. So it turns out, thanks to the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, that this was novel, and many papers have been written about this concept that you can have basically access control without there being any single point of control. So I've already spoken about the API. Let's skip through that. Matrix evolves via a spec process that we came up with in about 2019. And we deliberately operate outside of W3C and IETF and the big standards bodies because, frankly, we want to move faster and we want to do it on our terms. The way it works is you have one monolithic spec. This is not like XMPP, where you have hundreds of different XEP extensions. Instead, there is just one repository that gives the current version of Matrix. When people want to change it, they basically propose a PR, which we call an MSC, a Matrix Spec Change Proposal. And it goes through this life cycle where people review it. Then the core team says, hey, let's go and merge this, or let's not merge it. You get a week for people to comment on it, and then it gets actually applied to the spec itself, and then gets released in the next version of the spec, which releases every quarter. And you can see over the time, interestingly, our rate of new updates to the spec is pretty linear, and you can see the number which get merged, the number which get closed, pretty equal, interestingly, and then a whole big backlog of great ideas which people come up with, which eventually we incorporate or not. And that's the same life cycle again. Does anybody care about a comparison with XMPP? Nope. So, Matrix 2.0. This is where all the work is happening at the moment. Historically, our strategy on Matrix was make it work, and then make it work right, and then make it work fast. And you can almost look at the 10 years we've been working on this, and the first 5 years was basically make it work at all. Then the next 5 years was basically make it work correctly and get it out of beta. And now here we are at the point where we finally make this thing as fast and usable, and ideally more fast and more usable as the mainstream alternatives. We need this thing to outperform Telegram, WhatsApp, iMessage, Discord, Slack, Teams. So there are 4 main Matrix spec changes that go into this. One is called sliding sync, one is faster joins, one is native VoIP, and one is OIDC, OpenID Connect. This is not yet a spec release, it is more a state of mind. It is the idea, a bit like Web 2.0, of a complete paradigm shift in how people use this thing. It's all implemented at first in Rust SDK, as used in Element X and GNOME Fractal. We did the first release in September last year, and we're trying to get this replacing Matrix 1.0 by the end of this summer. So the race is on. So on sliding sync, the whole idea is that the server should only tell the client about rooms that the client needs to display. Now, originally in Matrix, when you log in, it just transfers all of your rooms to you. And if you're someone like me, who's been there since literally day one, obviously, I'm in about 6,000 Matrix chat rooms, and the JSON blob of the state of all of them without optimizations is about 1 gigabyte. And it takes about 20 minutes to log into my account. This is obviously ridiculous. So sliding sync is all about the idea that everything should be O1, so constant time, no matter how many rooms you're in, rather than linear time with the number of rooms. The whole, in practice, this means you should have an instant login, instant launch, and instant sync. To say it's been a bit of a journey is an understatement. I designed this, and I got it wrong. I over-engineered it and got obsessed about the idea that the server will literally only tell precisely the right information to the client to let it immediately launch. Therefore, the server needs to, for instance, be able to order the rooms so it knows what the top 10 rooms you want to look at are when you open the app and see the first 10 rooms. Turns out there is a fundamental flaw on this, which is that the server doesn't know the ordering because the rooms are end-to-end encrypted. We thought, or I thought, that we could kind of fudge it, do an approximation, and then fix it up on the client afterwards. Turns out the fix-up is a horrible mess, and it's a lot easier if you just sort on the client. So right now, and in fact as of last Thursday, we started implementation on the hopeful final iteration of this, which is called simplified sliding sync. And the idea of simplified sliding sync is that the server sends the data to the client basically on a really simple chronological ordering, but then the client goes and does all the ordering itself. So rather than trying to do fancy ordering on the server, it all happens client-side. I won't bore you with all the details, but suffice it to say that it is a massive improvement. So architecturally before, what you would have is like old Element with a native SDK written, as I said, in Swift and Objective-C using C++ encryption with libOM, which is an implementation of the Signal double ratchet, and then Matrix Kit in UI Kit on top. And then a whole bunch of weird iOS technology like Realm and Core Data and other stuff. And we're taught through to Synapse as a typical Python server implementation that is split up into lots of different Python processes that coordinate via Redis and store things in Postgres. In a Matrix 2.0 world, you have Element X on the left-hand side. Now it's all written in Rust, including the DOSMATs, which is our Rust encryption. SQLite now is the storage layer. We wrote the UniFFI bindings for async bindings, that is, for Android and iOS, so you can then plug the native UI straight in. It then goes through, at the moment, a proxy that exposes the fancy sliding sync API, but talks the legacy API here, and then Synapse itself stays basically the same. So rather than talking lots and lots and lots, let me just show you concretely what this looks like. So let me find some Matrix rooms. Hopefully that is coming up. This is my real account. Hopefully there's nothing too incriminating here. This is our back-end team, where people are asking whether we have an SLA for matrix.org's performance. No, we don't. And let me switch themes so you might be able to see a bit more clearly what's going on. I'm in about 6,000 different rooms here. We have things like spaces, which allow you to slice and dice these by different sort of groupings. So I can look at just the cryptography rooms, and this then has taken me through to this room, which has got, 1,000 people in it, and you've got people asking about just public end-to-end encryption in Matrix and how does it work. If I go into developer tools in Element Web here, I could look at the number of servers in the room, and you can see 700 of those are on matrix.org, but then you've got lots of people on other servers, many, many one-person servers, but I know privacytools.io has got 12 people there, any other large server clusters, or element.io, weirdly enough, has got 6 people there. And an interesting thing on Matrix is that we do see this kind of power law centralization around matrix.org at the moment. This is a bug, not a feature. We want to kill it off, but we do keep matrix.org as a kind of default server to help people get up and running before they then set up their own server too. Meanwhile, on element X, I guess here is the same room. So this is the shape of things to come. This is now a native iOS and macOS app. So no Electron. This entire thing is about 20 megabyte download, I believe. Obviously using Rust for everything, and feels a lot more like, I don't know, iMessage or some other native macOS app, rather than the clunky Electron thing that you get here on Element Web. Right, end-to-end group VoIP. I probably don't have time to do a demo for this, but we spent a lot of time doing VoIP over Matrix as well as messaging. So here, you use all of the same signal style end-to-end encryption over Matrix, but you can do scalable multiple hundred user conferences using Element Call. Element Call is the implementation. It uses LiveKit as a third-party selective forwarding unit, but it's designed so you can use different conferencing units under the hood. But the beauty is that it shares all the same encrypted identity as the rest of Matrix and the same access control. So if you hop into a room on Element Call, it is just a normal Matrix room. It's also nice that it encrypts per sender rather than just using a shared key or something like that. Then OIDC, this is a big one. So historically on Matrix, we made up our own auth APIs. And this was a disaster because auth and identity is an incredibly hard problem to solve. And all we found ourselves doing was reinventing OpenID Connect, but with more bugs. So as part of Matrix 2.0, we are trying to do the great transition to get everybody to just natively speak OIDC Connect. And it has many, many, many benefits. Specifically, you suddenly get two-factor auth, you get multi-factor auth, you get passkeys, you get fancy smart card support, all by using an existing OIDC identity provider. So when some government comes to us and says, we all have crazy smart cards in our laptops, does Matrix support that? We can say, of course it does, as long as your IDP does it for you. Now, one of the other really interesting challenges, though, is that we need to be able to support parity with something like Discord. I don't know if anyone's logged into Discord recently on their phone, but it's a really good experience. You just go in, ask for a QR code, scan it on your phone, and bang, you're in. So imagine doing that if you are also handling end-to-end encryption. You've got to somehow transfer your private keys onto the new device. You need to synchronize the encrypted backup so you can see the messages. You need to, you don't even know what server to connect to. In fact, let's show you what this looks like in practice. So here, in fact, I'll do it in an incognito tab. So this is a branch of Element Web, which I don't think I was logged into. Yeah, there we go. So, no, actually, I'm going to use the one I already had set up rather than start from scratch because I don't have time otherwise. Where is it? There it is. Switch to this tab. Right, so here is a little testing account. And it's got a couple of rooms in it talking about demos and testing. And let me take my iPhone. And to log into this, I had to go and select a particular server. I had to put in my username. I had to put in my password. I then had to go to my password manager and pull out the encryption passphrase to give access to my encrypted data. If you're a power user Matrix geek, it's fine. If you are a normal person, you are absolutely lost otherwise. So let me just share my, oh, there we go. There's my cat helping me work on Matrix. Well, there was my cat. Where's it gone? Sorry. It's QuickTime crashing on me. Try that one again. Move your recording, I guess. All right, you don't want to see me. You want to see my phone. Okay, I'm on. What? Sorry. I would AirPlay. What is going on with this? but then you can't see the rest of the screen. What I want to show you is weirdly enough, that we've now implemented QR login via OpenID Connect as evidence that we are slowly but surely making Matrix as good, if not better, than Discord. Third time lucky? No, can't even see the device now. Might just have to hold up my phone at this rate. Yeah, that is not happy. Try it for one final time. So perhaps I want the screen recording rather. Oh, there we are. Everybody pray. Come on. Oh, okay, never mind. I'll just have to hold up my phone and you'll have to believe me. Right, so here's my phone, everybody. I hope you got good eyesight. And on the bottom left, oh, I know how I can do this. I can use the analog gap. Let me do the analog gap. Right, here is my phone, everybody. Poor man's screen sharing. Let me turn off the annoying background blur. And on the left-hand side, I have a fancy PR build of Element X. And I'll go and launch it here. And it says, be in your element, and it says, sign in with QR code. And if I go and hit the sign in with QR code, and no, I haven't specified a server, I haven't told it anything. This is just a completely virgin app. And it says, open element on another device, and scan a QR code. And here, if I go to link new device, it gives me a QR code. I'll go and scan it like so. And it says, enter the number onto the other device. This is a kind of paranoia check that we do to make sure you haven't been shoulder surfed. It then takes you here to say, hey, do you really want to let this person, this new device, access your account? And this is an OIDC portal. This is no longer Element. Give it access, go back here, and help improve Matrix or Element, and we're in. That's it. So no configuration whatsoever. If I jump into one of these rooms, you can see I've got the encrypted messages and the backup loaded automatically. So this is the shape of things to come, where we're actually getting the onboarding and the first-time user experience working as nicely as you would hope. Sorry for the technical hitches. Right, so that is an example of our brave new world of IDC. Other stuff coming in Matrix 2.0 is Rust-SDK. We've already mentioned this, but it really is nice having all of the complicated stuff handled for you by an SDK, which is common across the different platforms. We've also got a version of this which I hacked together called Aurora. I haven't actually tried it in a while, but hopefully, if I can tell it to run Tauri here. This is a Tauri version, or it would be if it was working. Probably should have tested this first. Of the shape of things to come, where, in theory, you can use Rust SDK in a browser environment via Tauri, although that should come up as a native app there. Okay, well, you have to believe me that we have a Tauri version also of Rust SDK and Element there, which is very frustrating. It was working the other day. But, well, oh no, it's just because I needed to do that, wasn't it? Hopefully that might come up in a few minutes. Okay, well, let's let Rust go and build a whole bunch of stuff. I bet that's going to be on the wrong branch. But basically, it shows how you can build a desktop app on top of this. Finally, lots of work on crypto reliability. Historically, this has been a massive pain in the ass for us. Turns out that end-to-end encryption is really hard, particularly in an unreliable decentralized network. We've gone and built this new thing called complement crypto, because complement is the opposite of a matrix in some ways, which allows us to test that things are working as you would expect. It's written in Go, uses lots of Docker to spin up different servers and clients. And as of the last few weeks, we have fixed the two biggest remaining encryption bugs we have found, one of which turned out to be the Synapse implementation dropping data if it couldn't speak to its child processors, and then separately a horrible bug where push notifications on iOS would sometimes upload corrupt keys to the backup. We also, now having standardized on the Rust stack, are working on post-quantum encryption using PQXDH and Kyber, which is looking really promising. So what's next? We need to actually ship this. We need to get the Rust stuff audited. We need to implement sliding sync in Synapse, which, as I said, is just happening. We have now replaced the old SDKs with Rust SDK. And then there's a lot of work that needs to be done around anti-abuse, because it turns out encrypted chat networks encourage abuse, and bridging as well. And finally, we're continuing to work on interop with people like WhatsApp via the Digital Markets Act. Now, what's not happening is an interesting question, because there are a lot of projects that last year we were working on that we've had to put on hiatus due to lack of funding, particularly account migration, multi-homed accounts, the Go implementation of the server, low bandwidth matrix, peer-to-peer matrix, and Third Room, which is a metaverse on matrix, are all currently shelved. If you like this and you've got lots of money, please join the foundation and donate lots of money so that we can continue on them. Oh, there we go. That's Aurora showing, it did manage to build. So this is I don't think anyone has ever seen this before, by the way. This is a world first. But here, if I were to go and hopefully log in to a test account there, maybe, if I got my password right, then it should be using Rust SDK in the background to go and instantly log in. I have a horrible feeling I got my password wrong and that it hasn't actually, I don't know, perhaps it has. Let me just rerun that in the background. So yeah, basically we need help to make that happen. How am I doing on time? I've got like 2 minutes, right? That's hopefully enough time for me very quickly to show you, and yeah, Aurora is not happy, something that does work, which is Third Room. So I mentioned that we built an entire metaverse platform on top of Matrix. Here it is. It runs entirely in browser. It runs at about 120 frames a second or at 4K resolution, entirely in browser, no plugins. This is using a new engine that we built using triple buffering and shared array buffers. The actual graphics is done by 3JS, but the aggregate thing is all of our own devising. And the important thing to understand is that it's a matrix room. You can see, in fact, the matrix room ID in the URL. And if I go and hit enter on this and say hello world in here, you can see at Matthew on thirdroom.io saying hello world. I can go to another browser window. I can go and join the same world somewhere else, and I can say hello from here, and oh look, it's Matrix, in theory, if it works. Those messages hopefully will come through any second, and I would expect to see myself flying around in the upper atmosphere. Why isn't this working? God, my demo game is not happening today. Let me, yeah, apparently if you don't have internet, it's not happy. Why is this not loading? Okay, perhaps it's happier now. Okay, well, in theory, we should have a nicely joined up world. Are we actually the same one? Yeah, we are. Why is that not working? Oh, well, the demo gods are not with me today. Yeah, there I am. That was risky. Hopefully, yeah, I was just looking in the wrong place. Turns out if you don't point the right way and you expect to see people, you don't see people. Who knew? So here, now, hello, hopefully, yeah, you got the hello happening there. Hello, everyone. It's Matrix. We actually, if I turn up the volume here, you might be able to hear that we've got spatial audio happening. And if you had headphones on and if I run around the world, then you have a Matrix element call style voice conference happening at the same time. We also have shared room state for the world. So if I start creating objects, like, I don't know, throwing boxes at the other guy, like that, and picking them up and running around, all of this gets snapshotted into the matrix room. Another thing we can do is to press the magic tilde button, which brings up an in-world editor. So this is Inception style, direct manipulation of anything that's going on. So I could, I don't know, select the buildings, and you can see they all get nicely lit in the background. I can go and move them around. Let me look somewhere where you can actually see that happening. Yeah, okay, like that. Let me move it around a bit more. So you can see that we're able to just mess around with the fabric of the universe, as you obviously should. And then finally, if I go to the script editor, this will take JavaScript or Zig or Rust or C++ and compile it down to WebAssembly that runs in the sandbox to allow you to script the world to do anything you like. So every update you might say, I know, grab the buildings, and you can just drop and drag the buildings into it like that. It gives me a const already. And I could say something like, I don't know, buildings if I could type, buildings translation y equals, I don't know, math.sin of dt, which is, or no, actually time times something probably will work well. Hit run on that, and if we're lucky, then we will hopefully see, oh no, I think I need to give it a bit more amplitude there, sorry. Hopefully that might work now. So you're literally saving it down to WebAssembly and hitting go and standing on top of myself, and all my demos are absolutely doomed today and nothing is moving. But you get the idea that you should be able to go and directly manipulate what is going on. That's really annoying. What have I done wrong there? Anybody see my bug? Who knows? Is it time versus dt? But no, surely I want that to be, I'll just try it one final configuration. No, still unhappy. Anyway, there you go. That is an example of the sort of thing that you can, in theory, do on Matrix. We need help. If you benefit commercially from Matrix, please support the foundation. If you want to run your own chat system, perhaps alongside your ActivityPub server, go and run on this. Build on top of Matrix. Follow us on Mastodon. Thank you very much.